Hi, I'm Reverend Amy. Happy Palm Sunday. Thanks for worshiping with us today. No doubt today will be a very memorable Palm Sunday in our lives. We've never had one quite like it. It can feel overwhelming, so I'm grateful that you found us today and that we have a chance to slow down and worship God, remembering together the significance of Palm Sunday and Holy Week. So take a deep breath, feeling the Spirit of God deep in your lungs, in your body. God is with us, in us, and among us. Let's worship God together. During Lent, we have taken 6 weeks to move through 1 week, the last week of Jesus' human life. This has allowed us to expand time to freeze frame important moments and dig deeper into our faith story and our own stories. This morning marks the end of Lent and the beginning of our commemoration of Holy Week. And so let us speed up in time a bit as we remember the entrance of Jesus into Jerusalem on that first Palm Sunday. We found our place in the parade and considered our place in the picture, our role as supporters of Jesus' mission in the world. And then we found ourselves in the midst of the chaos and throngs of people in Jerusalem for the Passover. We stopped there, suspending the action for a moment, wondering how we could join Jesus in clearing out our own lives and hearts, our own places of worship, to make them a more welcoming place for the love of God to fully reside. We followed Jesus as he continued to teach in the city and among the people at the temple. His teachings filled our hearts as they filled those long ago, and we remembered the call to proclaim justice in the midst of injustice wherever we find it. we join the disciples at a table of extravagant affection and overflowing love. And then another supper, where all our assumptions about the way the world works were turned upside down. This week we join Jesus in the garden. Gethsemane is the moment when a chain of events begins that cannot be halted. Once Jesus is taken into custody, there is no going back. So we pause a moment with him in the garden just before his arrest. And we feel with him the temptations that arise when facing difficult circumstances to run, hide, use whatever power we have to change things, fight it, perhaps even bargain with God. We walk among the sleepy disciples who just can't grasp what is about to happen.
Let us pray. O God, here we are. We find ourselves alongside you in a garden of grief for the violence so many of this world endure. We are tired. We don't know what to do next, and so we sleep sometimes, hoping to awake from a bad dream. Forgive us, O God. Help us face this hour knowing you are always here. You only ask the same of us, to be present, to be awake. You entered our story through Jesus. Now help us to enter fully into the story of your kingdom, on earth as it is in heaven. Amen. Know this. We can open to let the story remind us that no matter what we face or how we fail to meet the demands of the moment, second chances are possible. You are forgiven and freed, encouraged and loved by a God who wants you to live fully. Let us enter the passion of Christ and the peace of Christ with each other.
Everyone, welcome back. I am so glad you joined me today, and I can't wait to see all of you again. Today, we're continuing that special time of year called Lent, the time of growing close with God. And we are getting so close. Today is Palm Sunday. Do you remember way back in March when we talked about Jesus entering Jerusalem on a donkey? That seems like a really long time ago now, doesn't it? Well, next Sunday is still Easter. Today's story is about prayer, and it's going to involve a lot of action. I am going to ask you to listen very carefully to the story and act out different actions that you hear in the story. So, for example, if I say Jesus walked somewhere, what could you do to act it out? It should probably involve standing up. You might stand up and do walking. And if I said Peter was sleeping, what would you do? I think I would do something like this. Oh, sleeping. I think you've got it down. So let us enter the story together. Jesus and his disciples walked to a place called Gethsemane, a garden at the foot of the Mount of Olives. He told his disciples, "Sit here while I go to pray." Peter and the two others walked with Jesus a little way. Then Jesus told them, "Stay here and keep watch." Then Jesus went to a spot, lay down face first, and said to God, "My Father, if it is possible, take this cup of suffering away from me. However, not what I want, but what you want." Then Jesus stood up and walked over to the disciples. He found them sleeping. "Couldn't you stay awake with me for 1 hour?" he asked. 2 more times he walked over by himself. 2 more times he lay down face first to pray. And 2 more times he stood up and walked back to find the disciples sleeping. One of Jesus' closest friends, Judas Iscariot, led soldiers to the garden. As they marched in, Jesus could have tried to run, but Jesus stood and said, "Friend, do what you have come to do." Amen. Great job with your part of the story. Jesus could have done things the easy way, and he could have run when he had the chance. But he did not give in to that temptation. Instead, he chose to do things God's way, and it would change the world. Jesus knew he could talk to God in any place, any time. Still, Jesus had special places where he felt especially close with God, and the Garden of Gethsemane was one of those places. I would like each of you to think about or talk about something. Remember, you can pause your TV to think about these things or talk to your family. Where is a place you feel especially close to God? A place where you can not only talk to God, but hear what he might be saying to you. Now let's all take in a deep cleansing breath through the nose and sigh it out through your mouth gently. And we'll close in prayer. Repeat after me if you feel comfortable. Loving God, help us know we can always talk to you. Give us the faith to do things your way. Amen. This week, you can find the story in your Spark Story Bible. It's going to be on page 468. Sorry about that. And it's called Jesus is Betrayed. You can talk about what does that mean to be betrayed with your family. And here's a picture of Jesus in the garden praying while his disciples fell asleep. And remember, in our Spark Story Bible, you can find the special character on each page. And this week we also have 2 choices for your Sunday school classes. The first one is going to be at a new website called ministrytochildren.com, and there is a Gethsemane lesson. We will put this up in the links because spelling Gethsemane could be pretty tricky. And we also can go back to last week's sundayschoolzone.com lesson for Maundy Thursday because that will include lessons similar to what we talked about again today about the Garden of Gethsemane. In the meantime, I hope you have a great week, and we'll look forward to seeing you again on Easter Sunday. Bye.
Jesus' defense in those moments in the garden was prayer, not the sword that one of his disciples wanted to use to protect him, but prayer was his source of power, that God's will would sustain him through the next day. Jesus knows what it is about to go down, and he will not use violence in these last hours. The letter to the Ephesians offers us the alternative armor with which we can gird ourselves to work for what is right. Put on God's armor so that you can make a stand against the tricks of the devil. We aren't fighting against human enemies, but against rulers, authorities, forces of cosmic darkness, and spiritual powers of evil in the heavens. Therefore, pick up the full armor of God, so that you can stand your ground on the evil day, and after you have done everything possible, to stand still. So stand with the belt of truth around your waist, justice as your breastplate, and put shoes on your feet so that you are ready to spread the good news of peace. Above all, carry the shield of faith so that you can extinguish the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is God's word.
Too much wine, perhaps. Or maybe I'm so sleepy because I'm just so very tired. This week is taking its toll on me, watching our every step, wondering when the other shoe will drop, afraid that the commotion stirred up about Jesus will result in something terrible. I've been on edge ever since we got here. But oh my, that parade! Who would have thought that this man I met on the shores of my fishing spot would turn out to be 3 years of non-stop surprises? The entrance into Jerusalem was more amazing than all of it combined. I felt sure that I was part of something that was going to change everything. But now I'm not so sure. Not everyone, it turned out, was so pleased about Jesus' arrival here, and we've been under scrutiny for days. And then tonight at the table, Jesus revealed that one of us was about to hand him over. I've noticed who was missing here in the garden, and I'm wondering if maybe he was right. My gut turns over with the thought of it. I do not want to face that these people who have become my family could turn against one another under pressure. Fear threatens our very bonds. So why put ourselves out here in the open? I need to stay awake, keep watch. I've got my sword. I know Jesus told me not to bring it, but come on. All he seems to think we need to do is pray. He asked us to pray with him. Yes, I pray. I'm praying. I'll fervently pray. But is it enough? How can God help us if soldiers arrive? And yet, I am so sleepy.
Every morning, since I'm not really sure how long at this point, I've lost track of the time, but every morning when I wake up, I open my eyes, see where I am, and then it registers. Not just where I am, but what's going on. And then it becomes, oh, this isn't a bad dream. This is really what's going on. We are living through a pandemic. It's not over, it's real. And it is strange here in New York State that the apex is being predicted roughly around Easter time. The escalation of death when we want to be thinking of new life. I'm embracing myself for that. I think we all are. It provokes a lot of anxiety, fear, and sadness in me. I can understand Jesus' prayer when it was clear what the road ahead of him was. The prayer, Father, take this cup from me. Take the suffering away from me. Let me get out of it. I don't want to do this anymore. Bill and I have joked dramatically for years when we were tired or overwhelmed with something. When will this long national nightmare be over? Now it's turned into waiting for a real-life, long international nightmare to be over, and it's not so funny. Harry Smith did an essay recently on NBC and likened life during the pandemic to Groundhog Day, the classic comedy film about a day that unfolds the same way over and over for the protagonist weatherman Bill Murray. Murray's character ponders, what would you do if you were stuck in one place and every day was exactly the same and nothing that you did matters? There is an air of Groundhog Day to life lately. Days can feel like this. We feel helpless, as if what we are doing doesn't matter. And as we look forward to Holy Week this week, it seems an apt metaphor for that too. I certainly didn't think I would ever be saying that about Holy Week. But we do know the story. We know what happens, the sequence of events leading up to Jesus' crucifixion and death. And every year we hear the same story again. It doesn't change. That cup of suffering never goes away. It is remarkable that Jesus faces all of the events of Holy Week head on. He didn't get out of it. He didn't try to run away. He didn't demand that God beam him up and have it be over. Instead, Jesus put his focus on moving forward, following God. He faced the consequences of such honest, courageous living, no looking back. It's hard to imagine what the temptation to get out of it all must have been like. But I do think that we have a little glimpse of that in our daily lives. Just yesterday I said, okay, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. Let's just get back to our regular life. I'm ready. And the more resources we have, I think the temptation is greater to go to that place. If we've been laid off, or our business has been shuttered, or if we have no one to care for our children when we work, that fantasy probably doesn't feel so much like a real-life possibility temptation. We are tempted in so many ways to get out of this, to not experience the complexities and sorrow of daily life. Denial is real. It can be a really handy coping mechanism against being completely overwhelmed, and it can really harm us. Have you noticed all of the productivity porn out there? Learn a new language, color code your schedule, clean out and organize your entire house, learn how to cut your own hair, write a novel, keep your children happily learning and entertained every minute of the day, enjoy soothing, quiet time, deepen your spirituality like never before. Productivity porn. It's a competition, and you can't play this game without a lot of privilege in this world. I recently heard a journalist talking with people around the world about staying at home. She spoke to a woman in India and asked, "Can you stay at home?" "Yes, I can," she said, "but I would starve if I did." Perspectives. Sometimes we just need to take things down a notch. Occasionally, just wearing real pants, a shower, and not eating cake for breakfast every day can be victory enough for now. We don't need to win this. We need to survive as a human community together. If we think of Jesus that night praying in the garden, we can either see that the bar is set pretty low for humanity, or we can see that we're in good, plentiful company. In the garden, Jesus asks his friends to sit there, stay with him. Jesus is a bit removed from them, praying his heart out to the side in the garden. He is suffering, asking God to take this cup from him, and what do his friends do? Look at their phones? Do some stress eating? Binge watch a new series? No, it's not that good. They sleep. Jesus comes to them really distressed. "I am deeply grieved, even to death." Nobody likes to see a friend upset like this. And he sees that they were sleeping, which distresses him even more. "Couldn't you stay awake? And you, Peter, building my church on you and all of that, couldn't you have at least prayed?" Jesus leaves them. And guess what? They do it again. Remember, they are the same bunch that freaked out when Jesus fell asleep on a boat during a storm. They couldn't believe that he could sleep through their distress. And here they are, when Jesus himself is suffering a huge storm. They fall asleep. It seems from this gospel story that there are two approaches to overwhelming situations. You can pray, or you can sleep. The disciples choose to go unconscious. It doesn't look like there are any insomniacs in this crowd. They can sleep anywhere. Choosing to go unconscious in a time of trial is a choice, but it may not be the healthiest one. The disciples falling asleep didn't help anything. It didn't change the course of events. They missed out. They missed out on an opportunity to be with Jesus, support him, and maybe even learn from this time of trial. Jesus keeps asking them to stay awake, be present, and they just can't seem to do it. So this can make us feel better when we are struggling. The disciples couldn't manage it, so I don't need to beat myself up when I can't manage my best expectations of myself. And it can inspire us to walk on through the storm, to try for a better way. If Jesus is calling us to be awake, I'm going to listen to that. At least get curious about it. Jesus is in a garden calling his followers to stay awake. When we think of a biblical garden, we think of the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve's beautiful home. They blew it and got kicked out of the garden. Jesus' friends blew it, and Jesus got dragged out of the garden under arrest. Seems like no good comes of leaving the garden. Or does it? When you are out of the garden and the perfect beauty and comfort it affords, you have the chance to grow and mature in your thinking. It's like growing up, getting kicked out of the nest to fly. You've got to figure things out, make mistakes, learn, and try again. For some of us, this time of being home is a little bit like the garden. Maybe you have more time for yourself or time to get caught up on projects. You can enjoy home, cook, and eat comfort food. But eventually this time of sheltering place will come to an end, and we're going to be kicked out of the garden, back to the real world, whatever that will be. Remember how Jesus told us to be awake and pray with him? Can we hold on to the things that we have seen? Can we live with our revelations? Or do we just need to roll over and go back to sleep? What we've seen is too much to bear. Where do we even begin? This time feels so unreal, so surreal. Maybe it feels like we imagine the apocalypse is like. It might help us to know that the word apocalypsis in the Bible doesn't mean the end of the world as we might think it does. It means revelation. Not a final closing down, but a great disclosure. How many things have been disclosed to us in this time? How interconnected we really are as a world community. How damaged our environment is as we see parts of it begin to heal as society slows down. The plight of people working paycheck to paycheck. The number of people living with food insecurity. The number of children without access to computers and internet to support their learning. How the disregard for science and factual information when ignored kills people. How fear spreads and mutates faster than any virus. How we don't have the social support network that we thought we did. How tribal we can be when it comes to sharing life-saving resources. How desperately unprepared our country was. How desperately unprepared we are as individuals. This is a lot to have disclosed to us. We are deeply grieved, even to death. Can we stay awake with Jesus? If we can't stay awake with him, we won't be able to work to repair the world that has been disclosed to us as so broken. Can we pray with Jesus? And can we go with him out of the garden? Those next steps are anxious, difficult, and head straight to the cross. But ultimately, on the other side of the Garden of Gethsemane is another garden. And in that garden, out of fear and death, early in the morning, new life is born. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took with him Peter and James and John and began to be distressed and agitated. And he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. He said, "Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." He came and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Could you not keep awake 1 hour? Keep awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." May we find strength to walk with Jesus through these days of trial, through these days of Holy Week. Amen.
Let us pray. We remember today all who grieve, O God, who feel that they have no way out of their circumstances. We mourn all who have no choice but to live with violence that threatens their lives. We remember those who work for less violence in the world, creating protection and possibilities of a safer existence for all people. And now let us call to our mind's eye, perhaps with our eyes closed, if you're comfortable doing that, those people in our lives that need our advocacy, presence, and prayers. Oh God, we ask for healing mercies for those affected by the coronavirus and their families so that they can regain their health. We ask you to bless the hands of all the people who are providing food to keep us healthy. Watch over the healthcare professionals who put themselves at risk and those who are out of work. Be with those who are experiencing isolation and loneliness, those who are grieving and filled with worry. O Jesus Christ, you are the healer of all. Stay by our side. Surround us with your presence, blessing and strengthening your people. And let us continue in prayer, saying the Lord's Prayer as Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Hello. Palm Sunday is a celebration of Jesus' triumphal entry into the holy city of Jerusalem, where he went to celebrate Passover. As we learn in Matthew chapter 21, others cut down branches from the trees and strawed them in the way. This year, will be muted. There'll be no waving of palms, no exchanging the sign of peace, no fellowship hour. But that's okay. Our church continues to be a congregation. We gather online for worship, pray for each other, and one another, and we do our part to stay safe and protect the larger community. Physically, and we miss each other, but we're not alone. As we begin Holy Week, I hope you will financial support for the church, whether it be keeping up on your pledge or by making a special Easter offering. You can support the traditional way through the mail or give online via the church website, delmarmethodist.org. Thank you so much, and blessings to you for a safe and joyful Easter and beyond.
This season, we've put a frame around a bit of life. We've sectioned off a scene. We've looked long into a face to see what we can see, to know what we can know. Just as we have done with the art and story today, zoom in your focus on the art and story of your life, especially through this Holy Week. The divine artist offers us such poignant beauty each day, in our own stories and in the stories around us, especially in the heartbreak and pain and joy and awe of a simple moment turned significant. Zoom in for an existential close-up and search for clues for living this life with more attention and intention. May you be blessed by the sacred frames that surround the moments of your life that you dare not miss. Amen. us today. I hope that we'll see you back here soon. Do what you can to slow the spread of the virus. Stay home. If you go out, please wear a mask. If you are out doing essential work for us, we thank you. Breathe, pray, wash your hands. Think of the changes and sacrifices you make as a tangible way of loving your neighbor. Remember, Jesus calls us to be awake with him and to pray. May we walk in Jesus' way. We are all in this together.